Welcome to AUCTV. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Victor Lagoretta. He helped design the campus center as well as the student dorms. And today he's here to talk about a very interesting project. Hello, Mr. Lagoretta. It's a pleasure having you here today. After such a long time, you're finally back on campus and you see the campus bubbling and so full of life. How do you feel seeing your work and your father's work now that you're back?
Well, it has been very special for me coming back here. Last time I was here was more than 10 years ago. The campus was almost finished, but it was still not with the students and not with life. And now to see it full of students with all the plants growing, with all the green area that it's beautiful, and how it has aged is very special. I think for an architect is the best reward when you see that the building that you design, that you think in your head, that you plan it with a lot of care, to see it taken care by all the users and in this case all the students, it makes a lot for us.
It must be a very rewarding feeling.
Yes, and I was very happy to see the students enjoying the places. They were sitting in all the steps, in all the plazas. Today I was at lunchtime and it was full, all the plazas and all the courtyards. So it's very rewarding to see that the things that we thought that were going to work, at the end they work.
So for the last plans, there was a very international team that worked on the architectural design. How did the Mexican influence on the architectural design in the past?
Well, it was, as you say, a very interesting project because there were different architects working on it. But it was at the same time a big collaboration effort. We collaborated with the other firms at that time, and I think the campus shows that each individual building has its own personality, but at the same time it makes a whole campus, and that's easy to say, but it's not easy to achieve. So it was a great process. And I think for us Mexicans coming to work in Egypt was very special. We did some research, of course, of what the Egyptian architecture and Islamic architecture was about. And we found that we have a lot of common things. I mean, we have a big influence from Islamic architecture because the Islamic culture came to Spain, to the south of Spain, and then came to Mexico. So you see a lot of the common elements in our architecture that are coming from this part of the world. And also the climate is very similar. In the north of Mexico, we have a very similar climate to Egypt. So we felt also almost like working at home here. So it was a rediscovery, in a way, coming back to work in Egypt.
That's very interesting. Moving to the present, with the technology and research and innovation lab, I would like to know a bit more about your personal vision when it comes to this big leap, when it comes to this lab.
Well, of course, when they called us to do a new building here in campus, we were extremely excited. Coming back here after 13 years and do something new in AUC, it's very special. And it was very special also, this building, because being a research center and the tree lab, it has to have a different feeling, and has to have a feeling of innovation, of flexibility. It's a place where both teachers and students are going to do exercise with new models, with new technologies, and to test a lot of new products. Also, the idea is that in the building they can be incorporated offices from firms that are outside the campus and also work together with the students. So it has to be like a very active building, a building that is very flexible, that it's new, that shows these new technologies. But at the same time, we want a building that belongs to the campus and responds to the tradition of Egypt. No? So it's a blend of old and new, and that's what is very exciting for us.
How will the essence of the AUC be incorporated in this new building?
Well, I think AUC it's a university that is looking always to the future, is looking to educate the new generations, but at the same time it's always responding to the past. And that you can see it in the architecture. I mean, this campus cannot be anywhere but in Egypt, but in Cairo, no? And that's what makes AUC unique. And in this new building, we want to achieve the same thing. That it's a tri-lab that has the best facilities, that are world class, that are comparable to any installations anywhere in the world, but at the same time, the architecture has to reflect that it's in Cairo, and that it belongs to the Egyptian culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the buildings here have a lot of Egyptian touches, but also international touches, as we mentioned earlier. You earlier just mentioned flexibility and use of space, and we see a lot of that on the campus center and in the dorms, but how will that be implemented in the new tri-labs?
Well, I think flexibility is something that is being looked much more in the buildings today. We have looked big changes in the world with the last pandemic. We have seen like big changes in the way we work, in the way we study, and we see that the office space is no longer what it used to be before. The teaching classes are no longer what they used to be anymore. So I think the future has to be with these flexible spaces, because now with technology you can work in very different environments. You don't need necessarily to have your private office and your very rigid space or a very rigid classrooms. I think now students are able to learn in many different ways, and that's what we need to achieve in this new building, that flexibility. At the same time, I think it's very important to achieve interaction. I think the learning, it's more and more about coming from different backgrounds and different careers. So also the tri-lab is interesting because it's going to handle experiments from all the different fields. So maybe one who is studying architecture can learn from the one who is studying economics or administration or engineering. And with this interaction, I think that there will be a lot of richness achieved.
How do you think that interaction can be accomplished through a space?
I think you need to, in a way, force spaces that the students can go out, no? And a lot of those spaces, sometimes they are not in the program. So a lot of the research and the knowledge happens not only in the classrooms or in the libraries, but it happens when we are talking or when we are having maybe lunch or where we're walking. So I think it's also important of course, to create spaces that respond to the program, but also spaces that help the students and the teachers to interact. So for example, the center of the tri-lab, we are creating a garden with a small cafe in there, so that is very pleasant to go out, and maybe you are in an experiment and you go to the garden and maybe you speak to another guy who is doing another experiment, and that I think is what it's interesting to have these interactions. And I think architecture really helps that. I mean, we are looking at some of the places that have been successful in the campus, and sometimes are very informal spaces. I mean, we're talking that, for example, the steps, immediately students sit down in the steps when they have shade, when they have a nice wind and a nice weather. So to create these spaces that are comfortable and that very natural, the students can sit down and interact.
AUC had the honor to have you work with us before. What are you looking forward to the most this time that you're back?
Well, I think it was an honor that they call us back. I mean, it's always an honor to work for AUC. I think AUC is one of the most prestigious universities in the world, and of course, it's a leader in this part of the world. And I think to work as a Mexican here is very special for us. I think we can bring something of the Mexican culture here, but I think the more is that we are going to learn a lot from the culture here. So it works both ways. We learn a lot, and also if we can put something of what we have from our culture, that'll be great.
Yeah, that's great. With international work, it always comes together nicely. More about sustainability. Mm-hmm. How is this project going to be unique in terms of design and sustainability?
Well, I think sustainability is essential to the architecture of today. I mean, it's something that we have seen with the climate change and all the changes that we're seeing in the world today. And we architects have a big responsibility in doing better buildings and more friendly to the environment. We are talking about using mostly local materials. For example, we don't see any reason to bring a granite or a stone from the other side of the world. I mean, the idea is to try to use as much as possible the local materials. We are studying a lot all the prevailing winds, the orientation. we are looking if some of the spaces can work in passive ways that you don't need air conditioning all the time, or if you need air conditioning, you have enough shade and protection from the sun so that it's very efficient. So I think there are many ways in a way to be sustainable. And I think the other thing that is sustainable is to do timeless architecture. I think if you do an architecture that you don't have to remodel it or update it every time, but if it's a building that lasts for many years, that's the most sustainable part that you can do. So the idea is to this building is that it's contemporary, that is new, but at the same time we are aiming to achieve a timeless architecture so that it wears well as the years pass.
So it's as sustainable as it can possibly get.
Yes, exactly, because if you do an architecture that looks well for 10 years, and then in 10 years you have to remodel the building completely, then that's not sustainable.
Absolutely, I fully agree. And what do you think is going to be the impact of the TriLab for the students and the AUC community overall?
Well, ideally, I think it's a place for innovation. It's a place where students and teachers can explore new ideas, can explore, for example, in architecture, new materials or new ways of construction. So I think it's a space where to bring new ideas, but it's also a place to connect the university with other institutions outside the university, which I think that can be a great opportunity. Because I think the more and more that we work together with the industry and with the different companies that are in the outside world, it's going to benefit both sides. So that's another mission of the TriLab.
In what way do you think it would benefit this relationship between outside world and AUC students?
Well, I think, for example, I can talk more in our field. No? So sometimes as architect, you thinking your designs in a very abstract way or in your office, and then when you begin to talk to a manufacturer, you see the possibilities that you can do with your designs using the local manufacturer. And I've seen a lot of benefits when you work together. No? For example, if you are developing a window, no? And you work with the glass manufacturer and the aluminum manufacturer, there are so many ways that both can use the experience of each one, because also the manufacturer also concentrates in the way they do the products. But if the designer and the manufacturers they work together, it's when you get the better solutions. And this is talking about architecture, but I think that's applied by the different fields. That having this combination of what I was saying, like of different fields and at the same time of companies outside AUC working in here, I think that's very beneficial for everybody. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That brings me to my last question. What kind of advice would you give aspiring architecture students at the AUC?
Well, I think the main advice is that it's a profession that, in any profession, but in architecture you need passion, you need to love it. I think if you work for money or if you work for recognition, then it's not going to work. I think you work to do things better, to do things, as we were saying, that make people happy. I think that's why coming back to AUC was very special today, because I see the students enjoying our buildings, and that's the best thing that can happen. So my advice will be to keep that passion and to keep that idea of always doing the best possible in any project that you have. It doesn't have to be a large project. I mean, you can put all your passion even designing a bathroom and you can do something unique, and you will make someone happy if you make a well-designed bathroom. And it's as important as to do a master plan for a campus of a university. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lagoretta. This was a very insightful interview.
Thank you very much. Okay.
This was all for today. I am Mari Mikhail for AUCTV. Thank you for watching.